For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the morning of July 12, 2013, 13-year-old Lucas Bradford joined his Boy Scout troop for a hike in the picturesque Watkins Glen State Park, New York. He loved nature and adventure, eager to explore the park's famed waterfalls. But somewhere along the trail, near a cascading torrent of water, Lucas lagged behind and vanished. Despite an extensive search involving hundreds of volunteers and law enforcement, Lucas Bradford disappeared without a trace. For 10 agonizing years, his family lived with the unbearable weight of uncertainty, clinging to fading hope. Then, in the summer of 2023, a chilling discovery was made near a secluded waterfall: neatly folded clothes, a whistle, and a pocket knife. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Lucas Bradford. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. The deep gorges and cascading waterfalls of Watkins Glen State Park draw thousands of visitors each year, lured by the promise of natural beauty and outdoor adventure. 19 waterfalls tumble down the steep slopes, carving intricate paths through the shale and sandstone. While undeniably picturesque, the park's rugged terrain presents inherent risks, demanding caution from even the most experienced hikers. In the summer of 2013, the park became the backdrop for a tragedy that would grip the nation, a story of a young boy's vanishing act amidst the breathtaking scenery. 13-year-old Lucas Bradford was a boy who thrived in nature. An enthusiastic member of the local Boy Scouts troop, Lucas embraced the outdoors with a contagious energy. His parents described him as a curious and adventurous spirit, always eager to explore. Photographs from family albums show a smiling boy with bright eyes, often clad in his scout uniform, a testament to his dedication and love for the organization. On a sunny July morning, Lucas and his troop embarked on a planned hike through the park's Gorge Trail, a popular route that winds past numerous waterfalls and scenic overlooks. The troop, led by experienced Scoutmaster Nolan Keating, set off in high spirits, the boys energized by the prospect of a day exploring the natural wonders of Watkins Glen. As the troop progressed along the trail, the path narrowed near the base of Cavern Cascade, one of the park's most dramatic waterfalls. The roar of the water echoed through the gorge, making conversation difficult. It was here, amidst the spray and the clamor, that Lucas fell behind. Initial accounts from fellow scouts described Lucas pausing to adjust his bootlace. Moments later, when the troop leader called for a head count, Lucas was nowhere to be seen. Confusion quickly turned to panic as the scouts retraced their steps, their calls of Lucas's name swallowed by the relentless rush of the waterfall. The initial search efforts were frantic and disorganized. Fellow scouts, troop leaders, and park rangers fanned out across the immediate area, their voices echoing through the gorge. Archival footage from local news stations captured the chaotic scene: anxious faces, hurried movements, and the pervasive sense of disbelief. Park rangers, accustomed to dealing with minor incidents, found themselves facing a rapidly escalating crisis. Police were notified, and the search expanded, bringing in K-9 units and helicopters. Divers were deployed to search the pools beneath the waterfalls, braving the strong currents and murky depths. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the gorge, the initial optimism faded. The search teams returned empty-handed, their faces etched with exhaustion and growing concern. The realization that Lucas Bradford had vanished without a trace settled like a heavy shroud over Watkins Glen State Park. The disappearance of Lucas Bradford triggered a massive search and rescue operation, one of the largest in the park's history. Trained search dogs scoured the dense undergrowth, their handlers struggling to navigate the steep and treacherous terrain. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their powerful searchlights cutting through the darkness, while teams of divers methodically explored the swirling pools at the base of each waterfall. The search area expanded beyond the immediate vicinity of Cavern Cascade, encompassing miles of trails and dense woodland. The lead investigator in 2013, retired Sheriff's Deputy Robert Connolly, later recounted the formidable challenges faced by the search teams. The park's rugged topography, combined with the dense vegetation and the sheer number of potential hiding places, made the search a logistical nightmare. The fast-flowing streams and waterfalls also posed a significant risk, hindering the efforts of the divers and requiring constant vigilance from all personnel involved. In the early stages of the investigation, several theories were explored. One possibility was that Lucas had accidentally fallen into one of the gorges. The steep, slippery trails presented a constant hazard, especially near the waterfalls. Another theory suggested that Lucas, known for his adventurous spirit, might have wandered off the marked trail and become lost in the vast wilderness. Wildlife encounters, though rare in the park, were also considered, although there was no evidence to support this hypothesis. The impact of Lucas's disappearance on his family and the surrounding community was profound. His parents, John and Susan Bradford, became the public face of a desperate search, their faces etched with worry in countless news reports and interviews. Candlelight vigils were held in the town square, and volunteers from across the region joined the search efforts, driven by a shared sense of urgency and a desire to bring Lucas home. Media coverage of the case intensified as days turned into weeks. Newspapers across the state ran daily updates, and national news outlets picked up the story, captivated by the mystery surrounding the vanishing Boy Scout. The growing despair was palpable in the news reports, reflecting the dwindling hope that Lucas would be found alive. Despite the extensive search efforts and the widespread media attention, the investigation yielded no concrete evidence. No footprints, no personal belongings, no signs of a struggle. Lucas Bradford had simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind a void in the hearts of his loved ones and a chilling mystery that would haunt Watkins Glen State Park for years to come. The relentless search for Lucas Bradford continued for weeks, but the initial urgency gradually gave way to a grim reality. The sheer scale of Watkins Glen State Park, with its miles of interconnected trails and dense woodland, made a comprehensive search virtually impossible. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the search efforts were gradually scaled back. The helicopters were grounded, the divers withdrawn, and the K-9 units reassigned. The park, once the epicenter of a massive search operation, slowly returned to its usual rhythm, the sounds of nature reclaiming the space once filled with the shouts of searchers and the whirring of helicopter blades. For Lucas's family, the scaling back of the search represented a crushing blow. The constant activity, the presence of search teams, had provided a fragile sense of hope, a belief that Lucas might still be found. Now, with the search diminished, they were left to grapple with the agonizing uncertainty of their son's fate. John and Susan Bradford clung to the hope that Lucas was still alive, somewhere out there, lost and waiting to be found. They continued to make public appeals, urging anyone with information to come forward, their voices raw with emotion and unwavering determination. The disappearance of Lucas Bradford was not an isolated incident. Watkins Glen State Park, despite its beauty, had witnessed its share of missing person cases over the years. While most were resolved relatively quickly, some remained unsolved, adding to the park's somber history. These other cases, though distinct from Lucas's disappearance, underscored the challenges of finding closure in a vast and unforgiving wilderness. The psychological impact of unsolved disappearances is profound, both for the families of the missing and for the communities affected. Forensic psychologist Dr. Eleanor Vance explains that the lack of resolution creates a persistent state of ambiguity, preventing the grieving process from beginning and leaving families trapped in a perpetual cycle of hope and despair. The not knowing, she explains, is often more difficult to bear than the confirmation of a tragic outcome. Years passed, and the case of Lucas Bradford gradually faded from public consciousness. The media moved on to other stories, the initial flurry of attention replaced by an unsettling silence. The case files gathered dust in the archives of the Schuyler County Sheriff's Department, a testament to an unsolved mystery. Lieutenant Alexis Granger, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for tenacity, had only recently joined the Sheriff's Department in 2013. While not directly involved in the initial investigation, she had followed the case closely, intrigued by the lack of any conclusive evidence. Years later, when a shocking discovery breathed new life into the cold case, it would be Lieutenant Granger who would take the lead, determined to uncover the truth behind the disappearance of Lucas Bradford. The case remained dormant, a chilling reminder of a young life lost, a mystery unresolved. The beauty of Watkins Glen State Park, once a source of joy and adventure for Lucas Bradford, now held a darker significance, a silent testament to a tragedy that had touched so many lives. A decade after Lucas Bradford vanished, the tranquility of Watkins Glen State Park was once again shattered, this time by a discovery that would reignite a long-dormant investigation. In the spring of 2023, two hikers, exploring a secluded area off the main trails near Rainbow Falls, stumbled upon something unsettling. Tucked beneath an overhang, partially concealed by fallen leaves and debris, lay a neatly folded pile of clothes. A closer inspection revealed a faded Boy Scout uniform, a whistle attached by a frayed cord, and a small pocket knife. The hikers, recognizing the potential significance of their find, immediately contacted park authorities. Photographs taken at the scene documented the precise location of the items, the clothes arranged as if deliberately placed, the whistle and pocket knife lying nearby, undisturbed by the elements. The discovery site, a secluded area accessible only by a steep and overgrown path, added another layer of intrigue to the already perplexing situation. Close to the neatly arranged clothes, investigators discovered faint rope marks on a nearby tree, suggesting that someone had rappelled down the cliff face. Perhaps even more significant was the discovery of a single, well-preserved adult boot print in the soft earth near the overhang. The boot print, clearly distinct from the smaller prints typically found on the well-trodden trails, indicated the presence of someone who had ventured off the beaten path, someone who perhaps had reason to avoid detection. For Lieutenant Alexis Granger, the discovery of the clothes and the accompanying evidence was a chilling revelation. The neatly folded clothes, the secluded location, the rope marks, and the adult boot print all pointed to something more sinister than a simple accident. The possibility of foul play, a theory that had been considered but never substantiated in the initial investigation, now took center stage. The renewed investigation focused on the forensic evidence found at the scene. The clothes were carefully examined for any trace evidence, such as hairs or fibers, that might provide a link to a potential perpetrator. The adult boot print was photographed, measured, and cast, providing a crucial piece of evidence that could potentially identify the person who had been at the scene. Soil samples were collected and analyzed, hoping to reveal any unusual or out-of-place materials. The discovery of the clothes, a decade after Lucas Bradford's disappearance, injected a surge of hope into a case that had long been considered cold. But it also brought with it a renewed sense of urgency, a realization that the truth behind Lucas's vanishing act might be far more complex and disturbing than anyone had initially imagined. The investigation had shifted from a search for a missing boy to a hunt for a potential abductor. The tranquil beauty of Watkins Glen State Park, once a symbol of Lucas's love for nature, now held a darker significance, a silent testament to a potential crime that had remained hidden for 10 long years. Lieutenant Alexis Granger, inheriting a decade-old cold case, approached the reinvigorated investigation with a methodical determination. The discovery of Lucas Bradford's belongings near Rainbow Falls had shifted the focus from a missing person case to a potential abduction, a theory that demanded a fresh perspective and a meticulous examination of all existing evidence. Granger began by revisiting the original case files, poring over witness statements, search logs, and forensic reports. She sought to identify any overlooked details, any inconsistencies, any clues that might have been missed in the initial flurry of activity. A key element of Granger's approach was to re-interview members of the Boy Scout troop who had been present on the day of Lucas's disappearance. Time and distance can alter memories, and Granger hoped that revisiting the events of that day, a decade later, might yield new insights or previously undisclosed information. The troop members, now young adults, recounted their memories of the hike, the moment Lucas fell behind, and the initial search efforts. While their accounts remained largely consistent with the original statements, one interview proved particularly insightful. Nolan Keating, the troop leader in 2013, recalled a seemingly insignificant encounter that had occurred earlier that day. He remembered a man, a stranger to the park, who had approached the troop near the entrance and engaged them in conversation. The man, who introduced himself as David Morrow, had expressed an interest in the local flora and fauna and had inquired about the troop's hiking plans. Keating recalled that Morrow had seemed particularly interested in Lucas, asking him specific questions about his interest in nature and his knowledge of the park's trails. At the time, Keating had dismissed the encounter as harmless, attributing Morrow's interest to simple curiosity. However, in light of the recent discoveries and the growing suspicion of foul play, Morrow's presence at the park on the day of Lucas's disappearance took on a new and unsettling significance. Lieutenant Granger's investigation into David Morrow began with a background check. Initial inquiries revealed that Morrow had a history of minor offenses, including trespassing and petty theft. More alarmingly, a deeper dive into his past revealed a disturbing pattern of predatory behavior towards children, including allegations of inappropriate contact and harassment. While none of these allegations had resulted in criminal charges, they painted a picture of a man who posed a potential threat to young people. Tracking down David Morrow proved to be a challenge. He had no fixed address and had drifted in and out of various temporary jobs over the years. However, through painstaking detective work, Granger was able to piece together his movements, tracing him to a small town in upstate New York. When questioned by Lieutenant Granger, David Morrow initially denied any involvement in Lucas Bradford's disappearance. He claimed to have no recollection of being at Watkins Glen State Park on that day and dismissed the troop leader's account as a case of mistaken identity. However, as Granger presented him with evidence gathered from the renewed investigation, including the analysis of the adult boot print found near the discarded clothes, Morrow's demeanor began to change. He became increasingly agitated, his denials less convincing. The initial interrogation yielded little in the way of concrete evidence. However, Lieutenant Granger sensed a crack in Morrow's facade, a flicker of unease that suggested he knew more than he was letting on. The investigation was far from over, but the focus had narrowed, and the net was closing around David Morrow. Under the mounting pressure of Lieutenant Granger's interrogation, David Morrow's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. His initial denials, delivered with practiced indifference, gradually gave way to a nervous fidgeting, a telltale sign of a man on the verge of breaking. Faced with the undeniable evidence, the matching boot print, the detailed recollection of Nolan Keating, and the growing weight of circumstantial evidence, Morrow finally confessed. His confession, delivered in a low, halting voice, painted a chilling picture of premeditated abduction and calculated deception. Morrow admitted that he had been at Watkins Glen State Park on the day of Lucas's disappearance, drawn there by the prospect of encountering vulnerable children. He described how he had observed the Boy Scout troop, singling out Lucas as his target. He confessed to luring Lucas away from the group with the promise of showing him a secret waterfall, a place unknown to most visitors. Morrow led Lucas deep into the woods, far from the marked trails, to a secluded area near Rainbow Falls. There, he overpowered the young boy, silencing his cries with threats and intimidation. Morrow's confession revealed the horrifying details of Lucas's captivity. He described how he had kept Lucas confined in a cellar beneath his remote cabin, a dark and damp space with only a single barred window high above. Lucas was kept chained, fed sporadically, and subjected to years of psychological and physical abuse. Morrow's account of Lucas's ordeal was delivered with a chilling detachment, devoid of any remorse or empathy. He described the deliberate placement of Lucas's clothes near Rainbow Falls, a calculated attempt to mislead investigators and create the impression that the boy had fallen into the gorge. The rope marks on the tree and the adult boot print, he explained, were part of his carefully orchestrated plan to stage the scene and divert attention away from himself. The years of captivity, as described by Morrow, were a testament to Lucas's resilience and unwavering will to survive. Despite the unimaginable trauma he endured, Lucas never gave up hope of escape. He meticulously planned and executed his escape in 2019, seizing an opportunity when Morrow had left the cabin unattended. He managed to break free from his chains, climb out the cellar window, and flee into the surrounding woods. Fearing recapture, Lucas had assumed a new identity, living a quiet and unassuming life in a small town far from Watkins Glen. He had avoided contact with his family, believing that they had likely mourned him as dead. The news of the discovery of his clothes at Watkins Glen, a decade after his disappearance, reached Lucas in his new life. The resurgence of the case, the renewed focus on his disappearance, forced him to confront his past and make a difficult decision. After years of silence, Lucas chose to come forward, driven by a desire to reclaim his identity and bring his abductor to justice. His reappearance, after being presumed dead for so long, was nothing short of miraculous. In an emotional interview, Lucas recounted his ordeal, his voice trembling with a mixture of pain and relief. He described the fear, the loneliness, the constant struggle to maintain hope in the face of unimaginable adversity. His story was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a story of survival against all odds. The wheels of justice turned swiftly following David Morrow's chilling confession. He was charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, and multiple counts of child abuse. The case against him was overwhelming, built on a foundation of forensic evidence, eyewitness testimony, and Morrow's own detailed confession. He pleaded guilty to all charges, sparing Lucas the further trauma of a trial and ensuring a swift conviction. Morrow was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a sentence that reflected the gravity of his crimes and the lasting impact on Lucas Bradford and his family. The process of verifying Lucas's identity was overseen by Dr. Charlotte Stevens, a renowned forensic anthropologist. Dr. Stevens employed a range of techniques, including DNA analysis, dental records comparison, and facial recognition software. She also conducted a thorough medical examination, documenting the physical scars that bore witness to Lucas's years of captivity. Dr. Stevens's expert analysis confirmed beyond any doubt that the young man who had come forward was indeed Lucas Bradford, the Boy Scout who had vanished from Watkins Glen State Park a decade earlier. The reunion of Lucas with his family was a moment of profound emotion. Years of agonizing uncertainty and presumed grief transformed into overwhelming joy and relief. Images of the reunion, captured by news cameras, showed a family embracing, tears streaming down their faces, a powerful testament to the enduring strength of familial bonds. The years of separation had taken their toll, but the love and connection remained unbroken. The psychological impact of Lucas's ordeal was significant. He suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, experiencing flashbacks, nightmares, and intense anxiety. His family, too, bore the emotional scars of years of uncertainty and grief. They sought professional counseling and support, navigating the complex process of healing and rebuilding their lives. The community rallied around the Bradford family, offering practical and emotional support. Local organizations provided counseling services, and fundraisers were held to help cover the costs of Lucas's ongoing medical and psychological treatment. The return of Lucas Bradford transformed a story of presumed tragedy into one of remarkable survival. His ordeal captivated the nation, inspiring awe and admiration for his resilience and unwavering spirit. His story became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of circumstances, the human spirit can endure. Lucas, now a young man, looks towards the future with a newfound sense of purpose. He is committed to using his experience to help others who have suffered trauma, sharing his story of survival and advocating for greater awareness of child abduction and abuse. He has become a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of hope for those who have endured unimaginable hardship. He carries with him the scars of his past, but he also carries the strength of his survival, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome adversity.